embrace truth, justice, peace, and a path to prosperity, I believe that America's best days can still be ahead, and I want to lead us forward. Join me now in the Read Revolution.
Hey, good morning. It's Monday, the 5th day of January, 2026. I'm John Reed, and glad to be back with you in this capacity, on air, as it were, on the start of a brand new year. And lots to talk about as we were getting ready for the program over the weekend. Who knew that we would be starting out 2026 with such dramatic headlines? And even this morning, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who ran for vice president of the United States, announces he's not going to run for a third term as governor of Minnesota after the scandal that was uncovered there with the Somalian learning centers and the daycare centers and what appears to be a fleecing of the federal government. That, we'll find out whether he was knee deep in this, whether he understood what was going on, whether he was empowering people. But for him to step aside and choose not to run for a third term, I think is pretty significant. And then, of course, the big story today and throughout the weekend is the capture of Maduro in Venezuela. And he's about to go before a judge in New York on this Monday morning. How dramatic is this, that this has occurred? And how dramatic is the reaction by Democrats, where just a couple of years ago, Maduro was seen as an international villain, by them included, and now they can't help but defend him on some level. And it's just a reflexive trashing of Donald Trump. We'll talk about it. We've got former Congressman Dave Brat joining us. He has some thoughts on that in a little bit. And then, did you watch any of the inauguration and the first speech of the new Muslim radical mayor of New York, Mamdani? I mean, this guy, mark my words, you've elected somebody who doesn't know anything about anything, and it is a full-fledged communist. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. I mean, all these people who want to parse the language here, acting like there's a significant difference. This guy is dangerous, in large part because if you've studied history, this is the type of person, along with AOC, who are somewhat photogenic, somewhat dynamic, and manage to galvanize and capture the attention of a lot of people who are disgruntled and want free stuff. And they don't get their free stuff, and all of us wind up getting misery. And several people have said to me, why are you so obsessed with this? It's because I really, I'm 55 years old today. I don't know how much more time I've got left, but I'm not interested in taking the roller coaster ride down into the pits of hell and poverty along with the communists while they experiment with something that's been a failing philosophy for over a century. I'm just not interested in doing that. So yeah, sorry, I'm going to fight back against it, and I'm going to be kind of ugly about it too. The days of being nice and trying to find some sort of consideration for the concerns of people who embrace communism after its really terrible history, they're in the past for me. I don't know how you feel about it, but they're in the past for me. And in a little at the end of the show, my former producer at WRVA, Dan Hobgood, will join us. We'll talk about two issues that have popped up, and one of them no one's really paying attention to. Jay Jones, who, as you know, was, I'm still kind of stunned. He's the Attorney General-elect, Jason Miyares, not returned to office, and the guy who made these comments about killing, via text, about killing his political opposition and talking about killing police officers, which will teach them not to behave badly with minorities. It just blows your mind that this kind of thing is being said and that the voters don't seem to care about it. But okay, I think that's not a good sign of what's to come here in Virginia. But Jay Jones had this reckless driving ticket. And, I don't know about you, 116 miles an hour seems like a pretty significant reckless driving speeding ticket to me. right? I mean, you probably know people in your family have gotten regular speeding tickets, maybe a reckless driving ticket, 116 miles an hour. That seems significant to me. And he doesn't go to jail. He pays a small fine compared to the things that I've seen people get hit with. Uh, and the deal apparently was that he would do community service, a significant number of hours of community service. Now we find out that the work, if it was done, and there's a big question of whether the community service was done, but if it was done, it was supposedly done for his political action committee, the group that helped make it possible for him to run for public office. Does that seem right to you? Does that seem kosher to you? Does that seem cool to you? I mean, to me, that doesn't pass the sniff test. I mean, maybe if your mom ran some sort of halfway house, or if you had somebody else in your family who ran a charity and you were to offer free legal help, or you were, I mean, and everybody has to go clean up trash along the road. But seriously, your community service is working on your own political action committee, and now he's been cleared. No problem. The guy up in Roanoke, the prosecutor up in Roanoke, who was assigned to look at this, says no problem. And Jay Jones, okay, we just get ready for the inauguration on January 17th. All of this is just wiped away, no problem. I mean, I would have valued it more. Somebody hit me this weekend and said, um, yeah, when they saw this, when they saw this headline come up, they said, they stopped investigating Donald Trump. Okay. I mean, there's a difference between being the chief executive of the United States and being the Attorney General of Virginia, just like there's a difference between being Attorney General and being the chief executive of Virginia. The governor of Virginia. There are differences in the office and the expectations and the way we deal with things. But okay, then just say that. Just say you're shelving it because he just got elected and the people don't care. I still would have a problem with it, but at least that would be honest. But to act like there's not a problem here, that seems troubling to me. We'll talk about that. And then I know that there are a lot of people, this goes back to my days on the radio and on television. The new bag tax, 5 cents per plastic bag, has started in Richmond. And I know a lot of people roll their eyes at that and think that I'm being very, very petty when I say this is the perfect example of government overreach. That the government is going into grocery stores and drugstores and charging you 5 cents for a bag that costs like, what, 1/24th of a penny? They're charging you 5 cents for it, and they're going to tell you that it helps clean up the environment. They'll show you a picture of a turtle with a straw in his mouth wrapped in a plastic bag in Indonesia, and they'll try to guilt you in Virginia or New York and Washington, all these places that have bag taxes. They'll try to guilt you into thinking that this is somehow going to help the environment when it doesn't do anything. You know what it does do? It raises money for the government. It burdens businesses. It makes it more likely that people are going to steal. And it begins to prepare you for the micromanaging of government. See, I mean, even if you're an environmental wacko, okay, you're an environmental wacko. I mean, I have some respect for that. So you have passion about it. You feel strongly about it. Hopefully you're well-read and you understand what you're talking about. Even if that's you should have a visceral reaction to the idea that the government is going to micromanage your life to the point where they're going to charge you 5 cents for a plastic bag. We'll talk about that as well. Boy, you know what? Out of all the things that I have just brought up this morning that we'll discuss over the course of the next hour, that's the one that I get the most pushback on. It's unbelievable. I mean, even friends of mine who are pretty conservative seem to have no problem with paying this 5 cents or coming up with a solution around the government intervention. Like, oh, it's incumbent upon me to change my lifestyle to accommodate what the government wants. Do you not get it? I don't think we need the government coming in and dictating these things to us. For once, I'd like to see a government program
that modifies behavior that winds up not costing us more money and puts us on a better footing for the future. Most of these programs kind of subsidize bad behavior. So we'll talk all about that as we continue on this Monday morning. I did want to say here at the beginning, a lot of people have asked me about the name of this podcast and how we got started on this. During the campaign, when I was running for lieutenant governor, I did a lot of podcasts. I did a lot of interviews. It's interesting how many candidates did 0 interviews, right? You're running for statewide office. I think you probably should make yourself available to the media and to interested parties. And when you do a podcast, especially one that's not got any kind of corporate connection, it's just whoever the host is asking questions. It's kind of dangerous because you don't know where they might go. And a lot of these podcasts were with people that I had never met before. It's not like we had a relationship. I went out I drove like 4.5 hours to get to this person's compound. Very, very successful podcaster who, for whatever reason, wasn't the best interview, but whatever. I drove out to their home, and they had this dumpy little country house. And I pulled up and I thought, oh my gosh, I thought this was a bigger deal. And I pushed the button and the security people come out. So, we're out in the middle of nowhere land, and the security people come out, and then they open the gate, and I go around the dumpy house, and there's this huge compound that has been built by the wealth of this person's podcast. And I looked it up. They're pulling in millions of dollars a year on this podcast. And it's not like they are a well-known name from one of the networks. It's one thing if Megyn Kelly, would she get a payout of $30 million from NBC, I think? Or, some of these people they start at corporate and they already have bank. So whatever they want to do, they can do it. They want to endow a charity, they can endow a charity. They want to do a podcast to pass the time, they could do a podcast. My point, they're making a hell of a lot of money. And I kept thinking, I'm over here burning cash, running for lieutenant governor, driving myself through the night to all edges of the Commonwealth and beyond to try to talk to people. And this guy's sitting here, and for a couple hours a day, he's running his mouth about something he may or may not know anything about. Maybe I'm in the wrong business running for lieutenant governor. So anyway, I started thinking this kind of fits naturally with the work that I was doing previously in television and in radio, coupled with the experience that I had in Washington, working in the United States Senate, working at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Now a year of my life traveling the state. It was pretty good. I enjoyed talking to people. It was really interesting to hear different people from different walks of life expressing what their concerns are. And so even before the final results of the election were known, and knowing that job, whether I had won it or not, is only a part-time job that pays, $36,000 a year. I was going to need another job. I thought, all right, well, maybe the podcast thing would be a smart thing to do. And I started thinking of what to call it. You want to brand it. You want to make sure that it has your name in it. So we kept going back and forth. And I talked to some people, including producer Dan and some people in my family. And the word Renaissance is really appealing to me. I think that it's appealing to anyone who's hopeful about the future. It's kind of why, Trump is talking about the golden age of America. You had the Gilded Age at the turn of the century, 100 years ago. And, the only stuff that's really worth seeing in America is left over from the Gilded Age, right? That's why you go see the mansions up in Rhode Island. That's why this weekend for New Year's, I was at Jekyll Island in Georgia. There, wealth brings with it the possibility and the capability of people to do dramatic, beautiful things. They can do bad things too, but if you've got wealth and you're smart and you're thoughtful, you can achieve great things and you can leave a legacy beyond your time on Earth. Of course, we could have the conversation about being poor and being a good person and leaving a legacy. I don't discount that, but having that wealth is something that the average person certainly, uh, I don't know that they envy it, but maybe they would like to have that same experience. So I thought Renaissance, that would be great. The Read Renaissance, right? It kind of sets the stage. It's hopeful. If you do any examination of the Renaissance, that's inspiring. I think the European Renaissance, the Italian Renaissance. I mean, I think the word Renaissance is great. So for the longest time, I thought, well, we'll call this the Read Renaissance, and that will just catch people's attention. Everything is white supremacy these days. Everything is um, everything good has been attacked and labeled with some sort of nasty Nazi, racist uh, uh, language that does damage to it, kind of leaves a stink on it. And I think it's a very deliberate plan by leftists to take anything that might be inspiring, a Christian nationalist. Can you believe I'm not allowed to talk about Islam and some of the unfortunate problems that are happening around the world because of radical Muslims? I'm not allowed to talk about that. If I talk about that, everybody gets really mad at me. Even though I lived in the Middle East, even though I could go through my phone and call up people who are Muslim, who I like very much, who I would hope are still friends of mine. I'm not supposed to talk about that, but Christian nationalism is now the buzzword, and I think they just take every word and every phrase that could be used to inspire people to something better, or that has a legacy of that, and they try to put a stink on it of racism and bigotry and hostility. And so it is with the word Renaissance. Did you know this? That the word Renaissance is now verboten. You're not supposed to say that anything. We're not going through a Renaissance. Richmond used to have a group called Richmond Renaissance, which as a young person in my teens, I thought was great. It was when Richmond was actually attempting to try to do cultural things that would put it on the map, the state capital of Virginia. For those of you who are watching from outside of the state, I mean that I like that word. Won't work anymore. So after what I went through for the last year, um, really, I don't want to be negative, but it was a pretty rough experience, pretty bad experience, to be honest with you. A lot worse than I expected. Take your expectations of, oh, this could be bad, this could be kind of nasty, and then times it by 10. That's what I just went through. I thought, all right, we seem to be heading towards a revolution in the United States. I mean, every morning I check my Facebook page, and there are groups that are lauding guillotines, and they put that it's satire, but it isn't satire. It's revolutionaries who are in our midst. They're growing in number. They want to have more political power, and they're asserting it. And social media is giving them the platform to do that. I mean, I kind of like the idea of social media because you don't necessarily have to go and beg and scrape for somebody from New York to give you permission to talk to the public. But there's a downside to it because the revolutionaries, the people who hate America, who hate capitalism, who hate the society, they're going to utilize social media to try to spread their vile attitude. And so I thought, you know what? I really want to come up with a format and a program that will address issues head on without a lot of BS, without the veil that we're supposed to all walk around with, or the blinders, depending on what the topic is, that prevent us from actually dealing with issues, and end with the possibility that there's some hope for the future. And I'm going to steal back the word revolution, the Read Revolution. Okay, I can't use the word Renaissance because supposedly it's racist. I don't think so, but whatever. But you know what? We'll have our own revolution where we return to some basic principles and we return to the mindset of the rugged individualism that created everything that's good about America, and we reject the violence in the street that Antifa and BLM and the rest of the Democrat leftists continue to push across the country. I think it's going to be really hard in Virginia going forward, and we'll talk about that with Dave Brad and some others as we continue this morning. But we need a revolution that takes us to a place of peace and prosperity and reason, instead of the type of revolution that has occurred around the world, which generally leads to destruction and misery and poverty and a lot of death. And I don't think I'm being overly dramatic, having driven over 100,000 miles across the state in the last year and having traveled all around the United States and having been in the places around the world that have gone through ugly revolutions in the last several decades. I think we're in a dangerous place right now. And I don't want to stoke the fires of people doing harm. I'd like to inspire people to go back to the fundamental principles that will put us in a better place in Virginia and in the United States, in a better place for everybody. For everybody. Not white people, not black people, not let's settle scores from 100 years ago by discriminating against other people today because we didn't like their grandparents or we're mad about the Civil War. Can we come up with a way that everybody is in a better place today? And it isn't by embracing socialism, and it isn't by going down that path. And some of the people who will have big microphones and the power of the pen over the next couple of years are going to try to take you down that road. I'm going to try to avoid that. Let's take a quick break, and we will come back, and former Congressman Dave Brad, who's now at Liberty University, will join us. We'll talk a little bit about the economy. And you remember that Abigail Spanberger, the governor-elect, her career in politics got started sitting in the front row, if I remember correctly, Dave could tell us, harassing Dave Brad when he was the congressman. You know, this is an intellectual discussion, is not an intellectual discussion when it comes to her. It was harassment. I'm curious as to his recollection about that, what he thinks about Virginia going forward. Take a quick break for about 30 seconds, and we'll be back on the Reed Revolution. That's where the $1 million commercial will go once we really get started. Glad you're with us here on this Monday morning on the Reed Revolution. Former Congressman Dave Brad, who's now the Senior VP of Business Relations at Liberty University, is kind enough to join us for a little bit this morning. Dave, I know you're not speaking for Liberty. We always put that disclaimer. I remember back when you joined me on the radio that you're sharing your thoughts on things, but I'm glad to see you this morning. What can I ask you right out of the box what you were thinking this weekend when you heard that Maduro had been captured and now we're watching him be marched across the helicopter pad in New York? What do you think?
Yeah, it took a little bit of processing because the America First project isn't about nation building. And so the good news is, upon reflection, I don't see any globalist fingerprints here, right? So this is different, but the story's not over yet, right? Back with Iraq and whatever, the State Department, Victoria Nuland was, had pictures of her in front of giant Chevron oil company signs and whatever. And there were all these promises of what the great things we're going to do with the oil. And I went back and reviewed our, U.S. foreign policy. The United States is the greatest country on earth, always has been. But after World War II, our CIA and State Department got in the weeds, right? In Guatemala, and some horrendous stories. United Fruit Company, Banana Republics, John Foster Dulles and his brother, CIA, and State Department. And they managed things for the deep state. called everyone commies. Some of it may have been true, but huge exaggerations. They were both lawyers to the head of the fruit company, by the way. And so what matters is, and all the profits back then always went to a family. So now, if this America First thing is real, some of those oil proceeds, Chevron, whoever goes in to do it, they should just get a 10% rate of return, right? So that's fine. If the United States military does the heavy lifting and gives you a monopoly position, you don't get to claim all the upside and all the profits, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not capitalism. That's awful. And the boys and young women who are out there putting their life on the line, and the average median, the middle person in America better be better off, and the average Venezuelan better be better off. And so it's partly oil, but it's mainly China. I don't think Trump wants to talk about that, but go look back at Panama. Clinton gave the Panama Canal to China. Brilliant move. Gave it to Panama. China comes in, buys property all around it. Trump goes down there and takes care of business, cleans it up, refurbishes it, say, Panama, we want it back. It's ours. Gave him a good deal. And that's America First, right? Giving up the Panama Canal, you got to be, crazy. And so if we do it right, and I'm going to watch the money flows, and it better not be going to elitists. It better be going to middle America for major projects we need domestically, and to the Venezuelan people. And the Venezuelan people are rooting in the streets. That's always a good sign, right? They're rooting in the streets. They're very happy. And Maduro, by most accounts, was worse than Saddam Hussein, right? This guy was brutal, not elected. And so good move if we follow through properly.
Yeah. Well, the Democrats agreed that Maduro was one of the worst leaders in the world for the longest time. And they beat up on Trump after his 4 years in office, saying that he didn't do anything to deal with him. So it is very telling
Right.
that this weekend, when Trump does do something dramatic and takes the guy out, doesn't kill him, by the way. They seem to be fine with Democrat presidents who will strike somebody and leave people dead. But in this situation, suddenly they're very, very concerned. Tim Kaine, Mark Warner, very, very concerned that Donald Trump would do this. Now, I get the idea of starting a new war. I kind of agreed with Tim Kaine. Some people will be mad at me. I kind of agreed with Tim Kaine. It's when he expressed concern that we were starting long-term wars without consulting the Congress. I don't think that it's fair to have a president of the United States who can't take deliberate, precise action to deal with threats that don't drag us into a war. And who knows what the future is going to hold. But the Democrats have done a complete 180 on this guy.
Yeah. Well, and Mom Donnie and his comments, and, communism has this, brotherhood of the proletariat and warm, gushy stuff. But his press person came out this weekend and said, we're gonna have a new way of dealing, a communal way of dealing with your private property up in New York City. You got to first ask us before you sell it, and we're gonna offer you our price. And you come in, and so that is Maduro, right? That is Lenin, Karl Marx, Stalin, all of them. We're gonna put a board, and this is what Madami said. We're gonna put a new board in place. Whenever you hear about the board, right? Communism gets away with this trick that Christianity doesn't get away with, because we think humanity's, fallen. But they get a trick where they say, this committee we put together is going to be full of angels. And every committee they've ever had in all of human history steals from the people. And they never make the people better off. And then the system collapses like it did in Russia and all across the world for the last 50 years. And yet it's fascinating. And the one piece I really do get, though, is the frustration of the young people out there. And I hope they bear with us here, because they are getting very frustrated with being left behind, right? The average age to buy a home is 40 years old, whatever. And they're getting tempted to go this socialism route. And they haven't been educated on any economics, so they don't know what a free market system is. Mm-hmm. But just in brief, I'll just summarize very quickly. All of human history made $1,000 a year per capita till 1800 with the free market system. As soon as we chose Adam Smith, it's a social choice. You got to choose it socially. And if you choose wrongly, your society will not flourish.
Let me ask you about the Venezuela situation because I'm already hearing today that this is all about the oil, and I don't think that's correct. I mean, certainly that oil reserve and how that can influence the United States and oil prices internationally is important. Denying China access
Yeah.
to that resource is important, but there's a key political component here that the United States has got to be. I mean, I don't know what fantasy world people live in where they think, oh, well, we're just supposed to ignore what's happening in Cuba, in the Caribbean, in South America, in Central America. My entire life, even when Reagan was warning about what was happening in Central America, Democrats acted like uh, somehow what happens in Central and South America does not, we don't have a say in it and we should just deal with the consequences. I think because they knew the direction it was headed. What happens with the oil in Venezuela now?
Yeah.
What in a practical, that's
Yeah.
the whole, between the drug charges,
Right.
that's one set of charges
Yeah.
against Maduro, but the other set is about the country taking money from American businesses that invested in the infrastructure, never getting paid back, right?
Yep.
When the
That's
government
right.
switched.
Yep. Yeah, no, and it's not only Maduro; it's Maduro in combination with Mexico and Colombia and that whole cartel system that's out of control. But I think the key card there is China. Without the China piece, we wouldn't be nearly as concerned, even about the oil. And so, isn't I like it when people put stuff on paper. Like I'm big in favor of the contract with America for Congress, that kind of thing. Trump put it
Clarity.
on paper, right?
Yeah.
He's got his new national security document, which calls for hemispheric dominance, which is re-upping the Monroe Doctrine, which is you don't mess in this hemisphere. And so this is a clarion call to the rest of the world, letting them know China was visiting at the time of the execution of this, taking out Maduro. Russia's got their eyeballs on it. Trump's reassured them. That's why I don't think he wants to talk about China a whole lot, right? We're in a bind because of our business geniuses have become all addicted to China over the past 50 years. And he's trying to, keep a bargaining position for rare earth minerals open with Xi. So we're in a very tough spot because of malpractice by former Congresses and U.S. leaders. And Trump's trying to extract us from that disaster. And this hemispheric dominance is one way of making it very clear. And then the left, their heads will pop up. Oh, what about Taiwan? Why doesn't China get hemispheric dominance then? They're just automatic knee jerk against the U.S. And I would suggest they read our Constitution, where we are unique. United States, unlike China, promises rights language. And I wish we would get back to the basics: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, none of which Russia offers or China offers to their people on paper.
Who are they cheering on? They constantly cheer on
Right.
the dictators. They constantly cheer on the people
Yep.
who are
Yep.
crushing human rights and individual rights while they march in the street in the United States against this alleged dictator, Donald Trump. I mean, what's crazy about this is Maduro is exactly what they claim Trump is.
Yeah.
And yet they don't seem to acknowledge that. So, to clarity on the oil issue,
Yeah.
all of these American companies in the 50s and 60s, into the 70s, invested in the infrastructure of Venezuela, right? Because there were huge oil reserves.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
when it was in the 70s where they started to take everything away from privatization and nationalize it. And there were initial payouts to the American companies to try to make them whole based on that investment. But then that all changed with Hugo Chavez, right? So
Yeah.
where does what does the American oil companies expect to be paid at this point? Trump has talked about, he gave them a heads up, I guess right after the raid, that this has just happened. So what can we expect in the next 12 months for the United States of America, government-wise, and these American oil companies?
Yeah.
Or do we know?
Well, I do not know, and that is the $1 million question. that has to do with fairness to America First voters who didn't vote for regime change and for big, everything's big business right now. You got the big tech bros, you got big government spending, big healthcare, big everything under the sun. That's the last thing we want to see. And so, I would suggest a 10% rate of return, a fair profit margin to these oil companies, guaranteed. Plus, recouping their capital costs, like you said, if they can show, we've endured, loss of capital from the strongmen who took over our plant and equipment down there. That's fair.
In the
past. In the past. But this should just be very transparent because now the young kids, what's new is the young kids are going around the world and they're following the social media and they're following these stories like crazy, like with the Somalis. Right. And they're turning over stones that the mainstream media doesn't even know exist. And so they're going to be all over this in terms of the deal we're offering up to the young people in the future. And I just want to emphasize those minimal rights of life, liberty, and happiness and the First Amendment, if you want to throw that in there. But what the socialists get away with also is their basic thing is, I want more of your stuff and you're going to give me more stuff. The capitalist impulse is, hey, Joe, you're making Frisbees. I want a red one that flies good. And if you don't make it the right way, the way I like it, you're going to go bankrupt. Two very different philosophies, right? One, the firm has to make you happy in order for you to purchase their thing. That's a win-win. It's self-reinforcing. The socialist thing uses the monopoly of violence called the state. That's the definition in political science, right? The state owns the monopoly on violence, and they say, I want my stuff. And what the Christians who have become weak over the decades, right, and anyone else who wants to join with me on the defense of the Constitution, all are welcome. But our rights have been attacked, right? Our right to liberty. When the socialists say we're going to take your money from you and tax 50% of your income, you're violating my liberty. Where did you get a right to do that, right? Where is your right? Because of an election, I lose my God-given rights? No. Supposedly those rights are inalienable, and a democratic vote doesn't get to alienate you from your rights to life and liberty, and they are. So our Supreme Court has lost track of their guiding lights. And it's up to the American people to get it back. Or you will find out when they say, I want more stuff, the elites still live in their rich neighborhoods and are untouched and unscathed, even in London and in Paris and Germany. But those days are coming to an end in Europe. And our elites better wake up and smell the coffee, because it's an attack on capitalism and the Constitution. And it's really an attack on Christianity, right? And the nation state. The globalists don't want nation states. They want a global European Union, and they don't want any faith where you're beholden to God before you're beholden to anything else. So they're trying to wipe that out. They got the Bible out of school. They got the very book that ensures that we promise minority rights to everybody in this country. Every minority has rights, rights they're abusing right now. The Bible gives every minority rights to life, liberty, and happiness, and money and income and health care on top of it. And these minority groups want to get rid of the Bible in schools. The very documents, Deuteronomy was the most cited book by our founders, and they want to get rid of the very book that ensures them the minority rights, because the minority wants to dictate, right? They want to act like the majority. And that,
there's definitely a purge happening of anything that is grounded in tradition, in ancient Christianity.
Yeah.
I would argue that those are the things that made us successful, that made Western civilization. You don't have to make it just about the United States. Western civilization successful. So you purge the Bible. You don't teach that. I think there is a concerted effort by the leftists to denigrate people like Thomas Jefferson. It'll be interesting to see how he's dealt with in this 250 anniversary year in America. If you can discredit Thomas Jefferson, then you can discredit all of his writings and go through one by one with the founding fathers. And then what are you left with? A new leftist doctrine. And I think the average person is going to be pretty unhappy with what we wind up. I'm watching the clock, and I know you've got to run, Dave. But listen, tell me what you're thinking as we head towards inauguration day.
Yeah.
I'm clearly unhappy with the results of the election, and I could go on for hours about about that. And I suspect over the course of the next few weeks, we'll talk a lot about my election and what did and did not happen there. But Abigail Spanberger started her rise to become governor-elect of Virginia, defeating you in the United States Congress. And you tell me if I'm wrong. My recollection, because I think I was still on television at the time, um, maybe not. Well, was that she was in the front row of your town hall meetings, she and her friends and family harassing and being ugly to you, not having a dialogue, but really being a kind of aggressively
Oh yeah.
hostile to you as the
Yeah.
Congress. Is that wrong or is that right?
No, it's on film by the Richmond Times-Dispatch, who wouldn't print any of it, right? Tom Silvestri, I used to call him every Saturday morning and say, hey, did you catch him launching F-bombs at me in the front row? And Abigail was sitting there in the front row applauding on her knee, and all the people in the pink hats were going bananas. And the press wouldn't cover it. And the press is supposed to have some sort of social responsibility. And now the Democrats, like you said, and just to tee off your last closing comment on the new leftist doctrine, that's the problem. There is no leftist doctrine that I'm aware of other than deconstruction, right?
Right.
The
Tear us down.
Foucaults and the Rortys and the tear it down crew, but they don't have a positive affirmative economic system, a positive system of human rights, where they come from. If the left can answer me that, I'll give you $1 million. The capitalist system of socialism, the political system, the ethical system. Name your ethical system. Abigail wouldn't answer any questions. In our debate, I kind of had fun with it because I was kind of in a no-win position with the press. And after everything she said, I said, that's what Nancy Pelosi does 19 times in a row. And so the Times-Dispatch had, Brat just said she does. But then she got into office and voted 95% with Pelosi or something like that, right? And so I was right. That's why she was supposedly a moderate. But I do want to explain on a serious level with the Democrats what to expect. All political views are my own here. But the Democrats are pro-business, right? You've got to understand this, right? Why are they pro-business? Well, the Democrats are the ones that are fine, and they want cheap labor. They don't care about the border invasion and 20 million illegals coming into the country. They haven't passed any legislation on that front. And business loves this cheap labor thing. They're also in favor of every war, apparently. And not a word to be said by Spanberger or anybody else when they're in Congress on their doctrine on war or that kind of thing. And then go to the economy. They're in favor of even more spending than the Republicans. And the Republicans are terrible, right? Everybody knows I was pretty tough on the Republicans. $7 trillion budgets, $2 trillion deficits,
Yeah.
$38 trillion in debt right now, $60 trillion in debt by the end of the 10-year CBO window. Not a word from Democrats on that. They want more spending, more entitlements, more property rights taken away from you in Mamdani, et cetera. And so I just.
But see, I think they're doing it deliberately, Dave, because
Yes,
they want
they
the
are.
collapse. They want the collapse. And
Yeah.
one of the things I said in my speeches,
Yeah.
traveling the state, is Virginia's fortunate that we have a balanced budget obligation under our Constitution.
Yeah.
But don't be fooled. That's based on federal money being available to cover
Right.
the costs.
Right.
And at some point, and I don't know when it's going to be, I thought maybe COVID was going to be the catalyst for
Yeah.
our collapse,
Yep,
similar
same
to,
here.
we all looked up at the Soviet Union collapsed and thought, what the hell happened? That's coming to an end at
Yeah.
some point. It's probably in my lifetime. And I hate to think what that's going to look like when you've conditioned an entire society to be dependent upon federal money to do everything from build roads, which is a legitimate thing to do, to paying for your child care every single day of the week. I mean, if people are that dependent, there's no coming back from that.
Yeah. No, that's right. And it's intentional from the left and the deconstruction people and the globalists. And then the unfortunate part is our CEOs are no longer public citizens and public leaders. All the big law firms are in on this game. They just want their budget line in the budget at the state level or the federal level. The big defense firms have nothing to say about our pivot toward China and what our strategic policy should look like. Big healthcare, Obamacare. I had 3 CEOs, 6'4", A+ student type of young guys come in and say, we agree with everything you said, Dave. But we got Medicare formulas, Medicaid formularies, etc. Everyone's addicted to China, so they can't get off China. There's no more moral leadership from the people who are supposed to be leaders in this country. The CEOs are just morally bankrupt right now, and we need them back on the train. I lived in a tobacco district. They would support the Democrats because they knew I was a Cub Scout and I was just on the train. Like, I believe in freedom. Go make your choices, right? And so they give you nothing. I'm on their side, and they give all the money to the Democrats. And then our own Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, in Congress gives all the money to the most liberal members so they can win. And if you're outspoken against $7 trillion budgets, which Paul Ryan spent his lifetime being, he was very critical of the budgets until he became Speaker. So I was a walking Paul Ryan, straight out of Heritage, public policy commitments. And they give you zero money. Right. And Spanberger, on the other hand, walks in a room 2 years prior to me with Tim Kaine and gets the Atlantic or Vanity Fair or whatever, national press coming out of the CIA with Brennan. And she's in the CIA, and the press never asks her about CIA.
They still didn't during
and the
this
FBI.
election. It's really unbelievable.
Right.
We're just supposed to accept CIA. I mean, what were you? Were you James Bond, or were you a typist? Who knows? Who knows?
No,
I don't think anybody did that
Russiagate,
expose.
Serious issues with our CIA and FBI, and not a
Isn't
question.
it amazing that
Yeah.
left of center, sometimes really left of center Democrats all enthusiastically voted for the CIA operative for governor of Virginia? I don't even know. It's like I'm living in a different world when I hear that.
It
kind of
is.
thing. Dave Brat, I really appreciate the chance to talk to you. Hopefully we'll talk to you again. He's at Liberty University as the senior VP and former congressman. And maybe I'll text you and commiserate on January 17th on the day of the inauguration. I appreciate it, Dave. Happy New Year to you.
Thanks, John. Happy New Year. God bless everybody.
Thank you. All right, let's take a quick 30-second break, and we will come back. And you know what? Producer Dan. You'll finally see Producer Dan. If you remember him from my time at WRVA, we'll chat through some of the topics that I promised to discuss in just a couple of moments. Stay with us here on the Reed Revolution. So you got to be kidding me. Was there anything that was in that segment that was upsetting or patently offensive? These people are beating the heck out of me over this. Are you kidding me? I mean, that was mild. Wait till we get about a week into this and everybody's a little more comfortable and knows, what buttons to push and stuff. That is remarkable that people are on here calling me a fascist. I got used to it the last year. Seriously. Once you've been, it's kind of shocking when somebody calls you a Nazi. And I know what the Democrats were up to when they did that. And it is not benign. It's not just name calling. It's an attempt to murder someone or have them murdered. When someone goes out and starts calling you a white supremacist and a Nazi, because let's be honest, there's only one thing, that carries stigma in the modern society. It's being a Nazi. Right? What else could you call someone where there would be an immediate negative reaction? Used to be drug addict, drug dealer, murderer, rapist. Now the entire society is preconditioned to try to come up with some sort of cleanup for everybody's errors. They don't even call it a deliberate criminal act anymore. You never actually have responsibility for anything. So those things that used to stigmatize somebody for their entire life, I'm not saying it's completely a wash, but it's certainly not where it used to be. And, if the Democrats have their way, you'll go to jail for whatever time you get as they drop the incarceration obligations, and then you'll be out of jail, and it'll be like no one can look up your record. You're not, you start voting again. I think the only thing that you'd still be restricted from, of course, is that you wouldn't be able to own a gun. I mean, being a Nazi is the only slur that's still around. A bigot, Nazi, what, one and the same. And in today's society, if somebody calls you a Nazi, they're basically putting a target on your back. I mean, did you see that one of the VPs at one of the schools out in California was bragging, showing his bloody knuckles, saying, I beat up a Nazi today. I punched a Nazi today. And nobody seems to have a problem with it because it's Nazi. Who was it? Nobody cares. Is it true? Nobody cares. Nobody cares about the truth anymore. It's just labeling someone. And I think we got to rein that in. You know, I mean, if we're going to start calling names and putting labels on people, let's make sure it's true. What's weird to me is that this weekend, after the Mamdani inaugural in New York, I think correctly identified him as a communist. I mean, now he acknowledges that he's what, a democratic socialist. So is it inaccurate and unfair for me to call him a communist? Is that wrong for me to do? And people were all over me about it, saying that that's an unfair statement. Tell me why. Because I want to be fair. I want to be accurate. I think that that's an accurate statement. Producer Dan, who was with me for a number of years at WRVA Radio and has toiled to get us on the air here this morning, rejoins us. Did you watch the Mamdani stuff? This
I did, but you know, before we get to that, something very, very important. This is a very important video that I need to play for everyone. You know, just very topical. So, you know, hold on just a second here.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday,
oh, yes. Well, thank you.
to you.
Happy birthday, John. This is the big 55, right?
It's 55. No, I appreciate that very much.
Absolutely. Well, and
I
I got
appreciate
you. I got you a very important present. I got you a lifetime supply of plastic bags for when you go shopping in Richmond. So you know you'll be able to avoid having.
Well, you
to
want
spend
to
5
let's
cents.
switch to that topic for a second because
This is the Sheets one. That's a good one.
this is the example of how government overreach is killing us. Not because of a 5-cent tax, but the government, the City Council of Richmond, Virginia, and it's been going on for a long time. When I lived in Washington, working in the U.S. Senate, there was the implementation of a bag tax up there, and I deliberately would grab 10 or 15 items, take it to the checkout, and they would say, "Do you want a bag?" And I was like, "Not if you're going to charge me a tax." Well, we have to charge the tax, so I would say, "Well, you know, I'm just going to carry them out, and let's just hope." I'm an honest person. I'm not stealing stuff. But other people aren't going to do that. And I tried to make a little bit of a stink about it. I mean, it becomes exhausting trying to fight this stuff on your own. But, you know, the shoplifting in Washington was already a problem. And getting rid of the bag where it demonstrates that you actually went to the counter and paid. I talked to the people who were running the stores, and they said, it's killing us. It's killing us. Stupid 5-cent tax that doesn't solve any kind of environmental problem at all. I mean, if anybody tries that with you, next time you go to the grocery store or you go to the drugstore, just stop at the entrance and look at that store and all of the plastic packaging and all of the, you know, you have a bottle of vitamins there's in a plastic bottle. And then if you open it, there's a plastic seal. And then that's in a plastic covered box that then is in a plastic cover and sometimes be locked, depending on what part of town you live in, locked behind a plastic shield where somebody has to come and unlock it to let you in because the shoplifting's so bad. And you're telling me that a small plastic bag is the problem? It's not. It's a way of generating revenue, and it's a way of asserting government dominance over you and using your good intentions. This is one of the fundamental things that happens today is that good people wind up getting played. Your good intentions, your morals, your desire to do what's right is exploited by people in government and elsewhere to try to get you to participate in something that's negative. So this 5-cent tax that that went into effect in Richmond on January 1st is not only not effective to solve any kind of environmental issue or trash landfill issue, it burdens business, it burdens the customer, and it is the kind of thing, and it's revealed, and I did a Facebook post on it when it happened this weekend. It reveals that we have been conditioned to think, it's okay for government to treat us badly. We can find a workaround. So I can't tell you how many Republicans said, well, I don't really have a problem with it. I mean, all you got to do is bring another bag. Hell, yeah, of course I know you could bring another bag. You can bring your own bag. Of course you can do that. My question is, why is the government telling local companies what they have to do about packaging when it comes to the customer-client relationship? I mean, there are some grocery stores here that started this bag thing a long time ago. I don't go there anymore. It's not worth it. I'm not interested
let the
in
market
playing that
solve the
game.
problem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And they've apparently survived.
Well, sure. And look, I mean, the businesses would do this in a much smarter way. They would give you the discount for bringing your own bags rather than charging you extra for
that's right.
wanting.
That's right.
Because these are smart people who know how to make money other than by pointing a gun at others. So yeah, it's
to take money.
Yeah,
and to put it in their bank account.
Yeah, that's
and
this, but it's also
it goes
silly.
back to 20 years ago when it was Bloomberg, I think, in New York. And I, as a Richmonder, I hate to constantly refer to New York because I kind of have a little bit of resentment about New York being the center of the universe. I mean, you can't deny its status in things, but I hate constantly referring to them. But I don't mind referring to them when they do something stupid. And when Bloomberg said you couldn't put a salt shaker on the counter or on the table of people who were dining in a restaurant, a fast food restaurant or the like, I was like, how? I mean, are you serious? Is that what the responsibility is of the mayor of New York, is to tell you whether you can have salt with your French fries? Are you serious? How about you pave the roads? How about you make sure that the people who are attacking people on the subway actually go to jail and stay in jail? How about you make sure that businesses can open without undue regulation so that the little guy can actually try to open a business and become rich on their own instead of micromanaging the little guy about what they ingest as they eat the fat French fries? I mean, there's a know-it-all nannyism, and that's a polite way of putting it, that is on the march here, and that the bag thing just drives me through the roof.
If the founders were around to see this, I mean, these were folks who were ready to fight for revolution because they didn't want to be taxed for stamps or tea.
Right.
It's just
what's happened with the American mindset? If we went to war in large part over that,
or centuries,
then what are we doing today if we're accepting this kind of thing? I mean,
it all goes
that
back
much
to
of a
education.
throwback?
It all goes back to education, and it sort of goes to what Dave was talking about. People growing up now, people in their 20s, their 30s, even my age, they don't understand this. They haven't received proper education civically, economically, philosophically. They think that collectivism is warm.
It's more than philosophy now. This is taking money. I would think that everybody, we can have a philosophical conversation, but the second you start stealing money from me in order to make your emotional, political, or environmental point, to hell with that. I'm not on board with that.
Philosophically, though, if you believe that self-sacrifice is moral, then, you should just pave the way.
Your self-determined self-sacrifice.
Yeah.
Look, if I decide to sell my house and go live in a one of these little, what is it, the small house movement? Have you seen this? I've booked a bunch of them on Instagram where they have these really remarkable looking it's the tiny house movement. So the whole concept here is that you make the choice that you're not going to live in a sprawling 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 or more square foot home on a piece of property. You're going to live in a tiny house, and that's really all you need, is a place to sleep, a place to cook your food, a toilet, a shower, and maybe a little living area, and you can dress it up and make it look amazing. And these tiny houses do look amazing, but that's for me to decide. Why do I mean,
Yeah.
if you live in a free society, let me decide. Don't try to make it don't try to make these decisions things where you're bullying me financially or otherwise to force me into it. I think that's a
Well, I
real
say all
problem.
the
All right.
time, beware the politician who offers to assume some of your responsibility. What that person is doing, wittingly or not, is promising to violate your rights, because rights and responsibility go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other.
All right. Now, I
can't-
don't want to let Mamdani off the hook here. So
No.
you had a clip that we had discussed
Yes,
playing.
a rather viral clip at this point. I think it's made
This
the
is
rounds
the clip
in the last.
that
yeah.
really indicts the guy on
Yeah.
everything. In
Yeah.
in what, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Play it.
Yeah.
Too long, those fluent in the good grammar of civility have deployed decorum to mask agendas of cruelty. Many of these people have been betrayed by the established order. But in our administration, their needs will be met. Their hopes and dreams and interests will be reflected transparently in government. They will shape our future. And if for too long these communities have existed as distinct from one another, we will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. If our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it. Because no matter what you eat, how you pray, or where you come from, the words that most define us are the two we all share: New Yorkers.
See, that's an interesting way to end that little segment. And that segment is really remarkable. That's the part of the inaugural address that deserves to be studied. What does it mean to be a New Yorker? Now, I would argue that in the 70s and 80s, I first went to New York in 1986. First visit, it was a hellhole. I mean, hookers everywhere, drugs some people would probably like this. Hookers and drugs everywhere, porno shows on every corner, Times Square. You walked out once the sun went down and you were lucky to make it back to your hotel without something happening to you, maybe not being attacked, but it was rough. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think people would validate that that's the way it was. Giuliani cleaned it up. But I would argue that most New Yorkers, if you said, what does it mean to be a New Yorker? They would say, it means you're tough. It means you fight for what to make it in this world. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere because you're the best of the best. I mean, that was the mindset, I don't think I'm making this up, about being a New Yorker, was that you're the best of the best. You don't give up. You fight. You can tackle anything. And it's going to be tough. Life is going to be tough, but I keep fighting through it. Am I making that up, or is that a fair assessment of what the mindset of being a New Yorker used to be? Sounds like Mamdani wants to completely change it into this kumbaya, let's grab hands while we steal from the guy down the street who has more money than we do.
Yeah, well, the warmth of collectivism comes from everybody huddling together, because that's about the only warmth that collectivism produces. You're getting rid of any chance, like Dave was talking about in the interview that you did with him, of benefiting from capitalist free enterprise. I mean, that's why people escaped a circumstance where they were making only $1,000, or the equivalent thereof a year. That's why we have heating systems and air conditioning for the summer. This idea that collectivism produces any of this is just nonsense. I mean, basically, the Soviets stayed relevant for as long as they did during the Cold War because of their espionage. They stole everything from the West where it was actually being manufactured and produced. So it's just a terrible
China's
situation.
doing that to us right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Unfortunately.
exactly.
At some point we'll do a show on China, and I'll tell you about my time at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and interacting with China and actually doing business with them. But I thought the Mamdani speech, I mean, who is this guy? Seriously, I mean, of all the people who were elected in the last election cycle, here you got the biggest city in America, arguably the center of the world, right? Financially, certainly that's true, but you could say culturally, one of the centers of the world. And you got this guy who's in his 30s who I don't think it's unfair to say has never led anything, done anything. I mean, it's not like he was even the vice president of a think tank or something. I mean,
no. I mean,
there
same
are
thing
things
with
you
Obama,
can do to
community
bolster
organizer, whatever the heck that means. Yeah,
and yet I'm wary. I've told you
I
for
mean-
years, Dan. When I heard that Barack Obama was a community organizer, I laughed at that and thought, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And yet, the community organizer has outfoxed all of the think tank, all the conservatives who for decades have been, in theory, laying the plans to save America. That community organizing group has outfoxed this. And I hate to say this, and we can pick it up later in the week.
Yeah.
This has got to change, and it can change. But it sounds to me, and my observation, certainly in the last year, is that the leftists want control of America more than the conservatives want to protect America. They want it more. They will crawl across glass to go vote. They will take whatever money they've got, whether they're a super, super rich person like that guy in Charlottesville who's funded all of these political campaigns for the anti-energy crowd. They will give money to campaigns. And then the leftist single moms, the angry women who seem to be so hostile about everything. I don't know what happened or didn't happen to them, but boy, they're mad about everything. They will give money. And my observation is that a lot of conservatives are like, oh, no, we don't give money. And, we need the perfect candidate who fits all 50 checklist elements before we'll go vote, or we don't have time to vote, or we're not interested in voting. This doesn't suit us. Well, if that's your attitude, really don't be surprised when on January 17th, an entire group of leftist Democrats are sworn in and they start taking it to you day in and day out. And that's one of the things we're going to do on this program is try to illuminate what I think the press won't cover, which is the leftist agenda that will be on display at the Capitol here in Virginia and what you'll see in New York.
Yeah. And look, this also in my mind goes back to philosophy. One of the things I think working for the left based on conventional thinking is a certain degree of moral certitude that comes with their desire to give everything to everybody or share the wealth or this, that, and the other. And I think it's a misguided.
Share the wealth by force.
Yeah. It's a misguided moral certitude, but until the right has the moral certitude that the left has, I think you're going to continue to see this phenomenon manifest itself. But and before we go, I mean, it's still John, it's still Morning America. And before I step aside, people may notice that my voice is a little hoarse. It's because something happened last night that was very, very, very great. This happened last night.
Hold it. The kick is no good. It is wide right, and the Steelers are the champions of the North.
So as long as we can celebrate a Steelers win, all is well in the world.
Don't tell Alonzo. He was very upset.
I know. I'm sure
he was very upset.
He and I were texting. Yeah, I thought I was. I mean,
that
I
last
couldn't
kick.
believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. It just I was preparing for the off season. And
but if I got to work with you, I'll tell you what I told Alonzo last night because he was upset that the Ravens lost, and I said, the only good thing about this is it means I won't have to worry about producer Dan.
Dan will be in a good mood tomorrow
and being upset on the first day of this program.
Well, John, I will say somebody said a while back to me that you're not really a Steelers fan unless you hate your team more than you love it. I am proud to say, as people probably know who've listened to us for a while, I am a Steelers fan. So, it would have just been fait accompli if they had lost last night. It was like, that figures. So
you did seem to be prepared for
yeah,
the
yeah,
worst.
of course I was.
We did a rehearsal of this program yesterday, and I kept expecting Dan to say, I gotta go because I'm getting ready for the game. But you seemed prepared for the worst, with it. I mean, you know, I don't give a damn about the whole thing. I couldn't care less. And the only reason I was watching at all was Alonzo wanted to watch, and I had work to do on the phone, so I figured.
Well, the one thing about sports, and I know it's lightweight compared to and light fare compared to some of what we deal with for sure, but at least in the realm of sports, merit still wins the day. That you succeed in sports because you're good. You have to be able to walk the walk. It's not just about talking the talk. And
you have to show up.
Yeah,
you have to show up on the field of play.
Is Tom Brady because
you have to actually perform. You actually have to engage. That's one of the things that I think we should. How about we end with this? That's one of the things I think we should focus on going forward politically. Is as Dave alluded to, if there's a candidate out there who doesn't do press interviews, it's all press releases. They never get actually interrogated by anybody who, it doesn't have to be somebody who hates them, who's going to be unfair, but somebody's going to ask tough questions. If they dodge all of that and you still vote for them, you're a fool and you deserve what you get. And unfortunately, that is the type of, I've been trying to change that by inviting Democrats on our old program. Of course, they were scared to answer questions from somebody who actually knew anything about the issues. They'll come on and answer questions about, where they had dinner last night, but they don't want somebody who actually contests them. Mm-hmm. And God, if I saw it during this campaign, people who just refused to engage. If you don't want to play football, if you don't want to get knocked down, if you don't want to be out there in the cold or the heat, then don't play football. And if you don't want to answer questions and be challenged, then you shouldn't be in politics. At least not American politics. And see, this is the problem. This is the direction we're headed, is this anointment based on political party and mob rule instead of intellectual debate and discussion. And we are where we are. But as I said at the beginning, my hope is that we can turn that around and put us in a better place in the coming years. All right, well, that is going to do it for us. Producer Dan, I'm always glad to see you. We'll be back tomorrow. Now, later in the week, we've got a former Virginia governor. I think will be a really interesting interview, especially post-elections in Virginia. Some folks who have seen this dynamic at work in the past, whether there's real animosity between the two political parties. And then a former member of the General Assembly who I think has been doing an amazing job of tracking the pre-filed bills that are going in for this upcoming session. And I got to tell you, the Democrats are not going to have a problem at all saying, we won, we're going to enact our agenda, and to hell with you and anybody who doesn't like it. I think they're going all out on this. And the pre-filed bills seem to indicate that. And, Miss Moderate, Abigail Spanberger, when she takes office on January 17th, I think the veil of moderation is probably going to be removed pretty fast. I want to be one of the media people who actually points out where the moderation could have been exhibited and isn't exhibited and hold people accountable. I'm not sure. Honestly, all the institutional memory in our reporters in this town is largely gone now. Jeff Shapiro was one of the last people who had covered this stuff extensively, not just for the last 4 or 5 years, but for the last few decades. And I think we are really going to be in for a horror show at the state capitol if you're moderate or Republican, conservative in the next couple of months. And I think it's going to fall to me to explain that to everybody. So we'll be on tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Monday through Friday, an hour where we'll have guests and we'll talk about these issues. I hope it's a great week for you, and I appreciate you joining us on the inaugural episode of The Reed Revolution. Have a good Monday.